Hi, Pineville Church. I have missed seeing you from week to week, and just here at the house hanging out. We're having staff meetings by Zoom, and so it's just been a strange time for all of us here at Pineville Church and here in the Charlotte community, really all around the world. But it has been a time for me to take some time to uh, look through some scriptures, to um, just kind of look at myself, prepare myself for this time. And so I wanted to share some insights with you this morning, a little bit of some things that I'm thinking about. It was when I first started in ministry, I was at a church for 5 years, and then the pastor sat down with me and he said, "You know, I'd really love to see you move into another part of ministry here at the church." And as we spoke, I realized that's not really where my heart was, and so we were talking, I finally found myself saying, "You know, if that's what you really feel like you need, then probably I should move on and find another place of ministry, and then you can find that person for that job." And I walked out of the office that day realizing that I had just resigned. Crazy. And then all kinds of things are going through your mind, and you're thinking, what have I done now? And why has this happened? And so I got home and I waited for my wife, Linda, to come home, and she arrived finally, and she said, "I've got something to tell you." And I said, "Well, so do I." And so I said, "You go first." And she said, "Well, I resigned today." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, I just resigned. I just had enough, and I just felt like that's what I needed to do at this time." And so I said, "Well, just so happens that I resigned as well." And so we were shocked and wondered what in the world is going on, and is God leading us someplace else? Obviously, something is happening. And so it was a really confusing time, and we weren't real sure what we were going to do. But I had a couple of weeks vacation, and so we decided that we were going to head off to the Lake of the Ozarks for a couple of weeks and just try to sort this out. And the first week, I have to tell you, was just awful. We were just worried about, we had a little baby at the time, and we were wondering how we were going to pay bills. We were wondering where we were going to live, how we were going to find a job. And it was just a miserable week, really. And about partway through the second week, a lady from the office of the place that we were staying, she came up and knocked on our door, and she said, "Someone has been trying and trying to get a hold of you, and they really need you to call them." So I called, and it was a good friend of mine from high school and from college. And he was on the other end of the phone saying, "Mike, my pastor has decided that he wants me to move into another place of ministry at the church, which fits me a whole lot better. And so the pastor has asked me to find my own replacement. And the first person I thought of was you. And we need someone to come and be a youth pastor here. And just, I just thought, I don't know if you're available or not, but we would love for you to come here." And so I was able to say, "You know what? It just so happens that I am available, very available," and so is my wife. And so we went for an interview there, and God provided this wonderful opportunity for us. And I have to tell you that it wasn't easy, but God did provide. And in the Old Testament, there's a name of God that is used by Abraham. It's called Jehovah Jireh. Jehovah Jireh means God will provide. What a great name for God, isn't it? And the story goes that Abraham, he got this promise from God that he would become a great nation, that he would have children, that they would have children, it would become this great nation. But the problem was Abraham was an old man, and so was his wife was an old woman, and they didn't think they could have kids anymore. But God always provided, and God provided this little boy named Isaac. And so when Isaac was born, then later on, God told him, he said, I want you to take him up to the top of this mountain, and I want you to sacrifice Isaac to me. What a crazy, confusing time that was for Abraham. But he trusted God. And he went up and he knew that God would provide in some kind of a way. And he tied Isaac down and was getting ready with the knife to come down and to kill Isaac when God cried out from heaven and said, "Stop." And he said, "Abraham, look over into the thicket over here." And when Abraham looked over there, there was a ram that was stuck in the thicket. And he said, "Use the ram as the sacrifice." God wanted to see that he trusted God and that he revered him and loved him. And he found out that that was true with Abraham. And so Abraham sacrificed the ram there, and he named the place Jehovah Jireh. God will provide. And I have to tell you, during this COVID-19 or coronavirus, or whatever you want to call it, some people are calling it some awful things, but it is sort of a scary time, and it's a time when we really have to trust God more. It's a time when I've heard of some folks who have lost their jobs, and I've heard of some who are just struggling being in their homes and not knowing if their job is still going to be available when they get out. And there are those who have the sickness that are worried that what's going to happen? Is God going to take care of me? Is God going to provide? But I have to tell you, as I've looked back over my life over the years, I've just seen God's hand all the way through. He has always provided for us, and He will always provide for you. Trust in Him during this time. He is Jehovah Jireh, and I want to encourage you this morning that He is a great God, and He is a God who knows where you are. He's a God who cares about you and loves you. He's not a God who is off somewhere doing something else. He's not a God who is waiting for you to mess up so that He can smack you. He is a good Father, and fathers love to give their children good gifts, and they love their kids. And so God is on your side, and I just want you to know that during this time, you can trust Him, that He will provide. Jehovah Jireh, He's on your side.